I wanted to do a hopefully quick video on Lyme, Babesia, potential Alzheimer's, and the ketogenic diet. Um, I made a couple of videos describing my experience with an herbal protocol called the Buhner protocol for babesiosis. I had Lyme for probably forever, but I know I've had it for at least 5 years. Treated with antibiotics for a couple years, pretty hardcore, and um, and then found out I had babesiosis, which is similar to malaria, but harder to get rid of. And so I've been kind of working on that, and my symptoms at this point are mostly in my, head pressure, brain fog, really kind of definite cognitive issues, neck pain, some arthritis. So about 2 months ago, I stopped doing the herbs to try to address what I assume are some gut issues. Probably the. I mean, I'm sure the antibiotics affected my gut flora, and I've just been off for sure, like bloating and gas, and that's hasn't been normal for a long time. So I thought I'd give try dietary changes, and I wanted to stop the herbs because they do have, since they have antimicrobial effects, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't disrupting it further. And so I tried a few different diets, and they all tended to be on the low carb side. But I was reading a book this winter called The End of Alzheimer's by Dale Bredesen. He's a UCLA researcher, neurologist studying dementia, and he's had luck with the ketogenic diet and he has a whole pretty complex protocol that involves a lot of supplements and behavioral changes, exercise and things. But seems like one of the underpinnings is this ketogenic diet, and also he recommends intermittent fasting. So I took both those things on, and I want to say right at the outset that it's made a huge difference. So as much as the antibiotics did originally when I was really, suffering from Lyme, and within a couple of months, it knocked back my symptoms by 70% or so. This is comparable to that in terms of how much it's reduced my overall body inflammation, cleared up my brain fog, and I'm really struck by it. I mean, it's exceeded my expectations. So I want to recommend it to people especially who have neurological or cognitive issues. There's good research to support its benefiting the brain, and that's what I was trying to address when I first set out to try it. But what I didn't expect was that my body inflammation would also be reduced. And I've had some shoulder issues that have flared up that started around the time before I started treating with antibiotics, and have flared up in the last year or so. They subsided with the antibiotics. My shoulders had felt a lot better, and then it had gotten much worse, and I was really limited in what I could do physically. Couldn't really throw overhand to the dog. I was having to toss underhand, and couldn't really work out. That cleared up almost completely within a month of this diet, and my brain fog, as much as in this video I'm a little distracted at the moment for I don't know why, but my thinking is a lot sharper than it was. My memory's better. The head pressure, the nighttime symptoms of insomnia, and kind of weird buzzing in my head has diminished quite a bit. It's not gone, but it's definitely improved. So let's see, what can I say about it? It's tough in the first couple of weeks and I'm sure if you start looking into the ketogenic diet, you're going to find that that first week minimum and up to a month is hard in terms of dealing with cravings for carbohydrates, and feeling sluggish, and it takes, and there's an adjustment period for your body to upregulate the enzymes and that the whole system to metabolize fat instead of carbohydrates and glucose. Um, so you got to get through that, and it's sort of like a rite of passage I found. But once I came out the other side, but probably for me it was about 2 weeks. I stopped having food cravings, and instead of eating my usual 4 or 5 times a day, I was also had committed to doing this intermittent fasting. So in my case, the pattern I chose was to stop to make sure I had dinner before 3 hours before bed, and then to not eat breakfast essentially, but to eat my first meal around noon the following day. So I had a good 16-hour stretch of fasting, and then an 8-hour window for eating. But I've since actually limited that even a little more, so I'm down to 7 or 6 hours of eating window, and kind of compressed it to 2 meals a day. Actually, 2 meals and a smoothie in the middle of the day. I'm fine through the day, and I really like that morning of being fasted because I don't have to worry about food. I can get out and just do my thing. I go running. I work out. I go just do work, physical work, and don't have the time constraints of worrying about food prep and stuff. And I'm just really struck. It seemed like such a deprivation to me when I first read about the ketogenic diet. You're essentially, just to explain what it is, you're keeping your carbohydrates very low, like around 20 grams, which means giving up most fruit, giving up grains, giving up sugars. And I just couldn't conceive of that. I couldn't conceive of not having rice with my meal. I thought that's what fills me up. That's the bulk of my food. But what I didn't reckon on is that I didn't realize that fats and proteins are actually very satisfying, and that satiety level gets met just fine with a big salad. Instead of having a bunch of protein and veggies on rice, I just have my protein and fat on leafy greens, and it's a very satisfying meal. And I've come up with all these kind of shortcuts for meal prep, and I'm eating all organic, really high quality fats, and I have a broad, day by day broadening my menu, and I'm completely satisfied with this diet from the standpoint of being of enjoying my food. So yeah, I mean, I see some other people. I watched a couple of videos of or follow vlogs of people who have Lyme and they're really struggling, and especially with neurological issues. And it's just frustrating to see that and know that, I'm pretty sure I'm not just a one-off. I think that most people will respond this way. The research does show that neurological symptoms and inflammation in head, CNS inflammation and body inflammation will all improve, and there's reasons for that, which I could go into for the next 2 hours. But basically, what would be better probably for you guys is if I just tell you, just turn you on to a couple of YouTube channels that have really helped me out. The main one is High Intensity Health, is the name of the YouTube channel, and Mike Mutzel interviews researchers and doctors and athletes about health issues in general, but a common theme is ketogenic diet. And I think Lyme and Babesia and these other infections come up in a couple of videos, but I don't know that you're going to find specific information on his channel that focuses on that. But you will find really good hard science and cutting edge research. So that's where I've gotten a lot of my information, and then reading a few books. David Perlmutter's book, Grain Brain, I think it's called, and this book that I just mentioned, Dale Bredesen's book, Ending Alzheimer's. They're good resources. For me, I've got these two infections that I know of, and maybe more because I've been bitten a zillion times by ticks. And up in the woods where I live, it's just it's unavoidable. Apparently, I try to avoid it, but I keep getting bitten. Um, but also, I have a family history of Alzheimer's. My mother has Alzheimer's. Her mother did. Her mother's mother did. And Dale Bredesen mentions specifically Lyme and Babesiosis as precursors to Alzheimer's. So I feel like I'm in a really tight spot, and I need to, I've got like hopefully 20 years to steer the Titanic away from the iceberg. And and I really feel like if nothing else, I bought myself some healthy days and some time to explore other components of a protocol. Um, so if you guys have any comments or questions, please get in touch with me. I know I'm just sort of skimming the surface here. Maybe I'll spend a couple minutes explaining how to get into the ketogenic diet, um, and you can do your own research, or as I said, I'll be happy to answer any questions. But the initial phase to shift your body from carbohydrate glucose burning to fat burning, you need to keep the carbohydrates down really low, like to around 20 grams a day. And really, to do that, unless you're a nutritionist, you need to have an app. Just download an app on your phone to count carbohydrates. And I really resisted this initially, and I just played around for a while, and didn't go into ketosis because I didn't know that carrots, for instance, are fairly high carbohydrate. But for this initial period, you really need to be disciplined and on top of it. And once I started using an app, I realized this is actually easy, and I could kind of geek out on it. And then a couple weeks into it, I sensed a shift before I started testing my blood for glucose levels and ketone levels. I noticed this odd kind of mild euphoria and this energy kind of coming up in my body, even while the other symptoms were still kind of fairly, fairly strong. They hadn't really diminished yet. I noticed this sort of underlying sense of energy, and when I did start testing, when I finally bought a meter and tested ketones, and I verified that I was in ketosis, I started playing with the diet a little bit more, adding in more carbohydrates and seeing what the threshold was before I dropped out of ketosis. And you can feel it. I can't accurately predict my blood glucose or ketone level right now, but I get a pretty good sense during the day by my energy and by my mood, all of which have improved. It's incredibly, and my sleep has improved, and it's just a fundamental shift that you can feel. So yeah, I mean, that initial phase, you have to be strict and kind of gut it out through the carb cravings and the feeling of maybe having the flu. They call it the keto flu. If you're already fairly low carb, it may not hit you that hard. And in my case, I had been gluten-free for a while, and then I had experimented with the GAPS diet, which is a low carb, a lot of bone broth. It's meant to heal the like leaky gut and also address neurological symptoms. So I'd done that for a month or so, and so I was already kind of in this direction, experimenting, and so it was easier for me than it might be for someone who's used to eating junk food. And in that case, you might want to just go low carb for a while before you really jump in with both feet. Anyway, I have lots of tips that I've come up with on like how to cook a chicken and like use every piece of it, and how to do this diet economically and still have organic, high quality food. So any questions, just let me know, and I'll be happy to get back to you. But right now, it's all symptoms go, all systems go, and I hope some of you guys try it out. All right, thanks.